Hi everyone, we're going to be designing one of my most popular designs today, which is a dog-themed wreath. Everybody seems to go crazy for it. So we're going to be creating essentially a paw print using two different sizes of grapevine. Here we have for the paw itself a 14-inch grapevine wreath, and then for the little fingertips we're going to be using 6-inch grapevine wreaths as well. But let me give you a little backstory. We created a design very similar to this on Home Talk. We designed it for Christmas and we incorporated a fancy multi-ribbon bow with some florals and some greenery and even a squeaky toy. But for today we're going to keep it nice and simple. But bear in mind, a wreath like this, we're using minimal product. There's a significant upcharge for this, so in total we might have $10 or so invested, but for something like this you can sell it for easily $45, $50 at least. Same goes with the larger version that we used on Home Talk. That one probably costs around the same, about $10, and I charge $75 for them. So I always like teaching you guys designs that are very popular, that'll get you guys a lot of shares, but also generate some income, and this is definitely the project for that. So again, 4 little 6-inch spheres, 6-inch grapevine wreaths, as well as a 14-inch grapevine wreath, and we did spray paint these a black color. We used a Krylon Fusion spray paint. We used the jet black. It's a little bit shiny on some parts, but it's still very nice. Make sure it's indoor-outdoor paint, just in case your customer decides to place it outdoors. And the sign we're going to be adding today is this. It says, "Dogs welcome, people tolerated." So whenever you can pick up appropriate signs that are funny, yet not inappropriate, definitely pick them up because people really like the humor. But this came from Craft Outlet. The item number for this is 19133. And you can pick up the grapevine wreaths both at Michael's, Joann's, Walmart. You know, most places sell both sizes. But what we're going to do first is we're going to attach our 4 grapevine fingers to the paw itself to create our paw print. And what I'm using for that is 22 gauge florist wire. And I'm cutting pieces in approximately a foot. And we'll need 4 of them. And then what we're also going to do is attach each paw together. So here we have our fingertips, and now we're going to cut smaller pieces, about 5 to 6 inches. You could even do a little bit smaller, because you're not going to be using the leftover material. And since these are extremely lightweight, just by wiring them in, it definitely holds up. So now we're going to take a smaller bit of wire, again about 4 inches to 5 inches, and we're going to place these two together, side by side, and twist them. Just like that. And we'll do that to all 4. Just creating a line. And just make sure that you're tying them very, very tightly. And then for now, we'll just leave the leftover bits of wire poking out the back. We'll come back and clean those up a little bit later. And now we'll attach our final piece. And notice I'm just doing these in a line. That's perfectly fine because when we attach to our wreath, we can manipulate them to kind of curve around the wreath. And if you wanted to be doing this to an 18-inch grapevine wreath, you certainly can. So here we have our 4 in a row like that. And now we'll come back to our wreath itself. Find a place that you like the best that kind of simulates a paw print. So in this case, by having it face like this, since this is kind of an oval-shaped wreath, we're going to have the paw print going up top like that. So just make sure you find the best side. And then what we can do is we can take one wire, feed it through our grapevine, twist it really, really tight, and then come back in with our first toe and twist it secure like that. And then just snip off the extra bit of wire. And later on, If you want to hot glue them in place or kind of weave another piece of wire through it, you certainly can. But just keep in mind these are extremely lightweight, and if you tie it really tight, they do stay in place. And I always save the leftover bits of wire. So for this, I can use it in my glue skillet to apply hot glue. I could use it to piece other pieces together. I always have a little collection of leftover bits of wire. So continue attaching them. Pull as tight as you can. And as you can see, even though we tightened them in a perfect line, they very easily curve around the wreath. And there we have our paw print so far. Next, we're going to be attaching our sign and then creating a large funky bow for the base. At this point, I cleaned up my workstation a little bit, brushed away the pieces that were falling off the wreath, which will happen since it is a natural product. And now is where we can have some fun and begin decorating. So again, we're going to be using this sign, and you'll often find me offsetting our sign. Last month, our signs were perfectly straight, but this month, we are going to have signs a little off kilter, and that's just a preference of mine. I kind of like my paw print not to be sitting straight up, but kind of offset, which is why we're going to be doing the sign a little offset today. So since the paw print is going to be facing towards the right, this is exactly how the wreath is going to be facing on the wall, a little bit towards the right. I do want to make sure our sign is facing the same way, and then place our bow in the opposing side. So to attach our sign, we're going to cut some pieces of the 22 gauge wire, or use a pipe cleaner, totally your preference, and attach it using our arrow staple gun, using 1/4 inch staples. If you were using a pipe cleaner, I recommend black for obvious reasons. You don't want to be able to see the pipe cleaner in the back since we're not adding any greenery or any florals to this wreath. You truly don't want to see any leaves stuck on the back like you would do so in a floral wreath. So we're going to flip the sign around, and since our sign is over 1/4 inch, it's not going to poke through, but we actually are going to be placing it on the sides. And this sign is relatively lightweight, so to attach it, just a couple staples will do. Just like that. And what you can do is go ahead and put some hot glue on the ends. Typically that's what I do, but for the sake of the video, we're going to skip that step now, and we're going to attach it on both sides. Just like that. Now we can come back to our wreath, straighten out our wires a little bit, and feed them through the grapevine. Depending on the thickness of your grapevine, it can be a little difficult to poke the wires through. So we'll go ahead and attach the first one, twisting it very tightly, at least 4 or 5 twists from behind. We can see if we like where we positioned it, which we do. And then we can come back in and weave the other wire through. So there we have our sign. The sign is now attached. And now what we can do is we can come back in and create a funky bow. Since we're sticking to the black and white color palette, we're only going to be dealing with ribbons in the black and white print. And we also have some that have paw prints on it, which will just add to the aesthetics of this wreath. We're going to be using 4 ribbons today in the black and white theme, all coming from Craft Outlet. And then 3 of them are going to be 1.5 inch, and one's going to be a 2.5 inch print. This striped ribbon, the item number for this is Q614309-21, and this is probably the thickest ribbon in the bunch. I love working with this. We've used it in the past. This is actually a partial roll, so if you guys were in the group last year, we created a miniature alternative themed Valentine's Day wreath. And we use this ribbon. We also have the horizontal stripe that's wide. The item number for this is RX9135X6. We have a 1.5 inch Harlequin. Since we're going to be using the 2.5 inch Harlequin, we're not going to be using this, but just in case you want the item number for this, it is RG0146702. We have my favorite, which is the Paw Print ribbon. They also have this in a navy blue, and I believe they have it in a red as well. But the item number for this is RG1776X6. And then lastly, the 2.5 inch, which is RG0146802. And I already have a little piece of the 2.5 inch Harlequin already cut. So we're just going to pinch it about 4.5 to 5 inches down and spread apart the tails just like that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pile on top of ribbon. So if you ever have a yard or two of ribbon, this project is perfect for it, creating funky bows. You know, you could just use whatever scraps you have. And we're just going to simply place the tail in the opposite direction now and just keep on adding loops. So the most important part, in my opinion, when creating the funky bow is to make sure that the loop size is as close in width as possible. Tail size can be whatever size you want. This one's a little bit smaller than this one. It doesn't make a difference when it comes to the tails, but when it comes to the loops, I like to make them pretty similar in size. So now we're just going to keep piling on the ribbons, creating roughly the same size loop. And I say roughly because it doesn't actually have to be exact. I just like it to be as close as possible. And it's all just about layering. So now we'll come back in with the 2.5 inch Harlequin, and we're just going to repeat that pattern over and over again until we get a nice full bow, which in this case will be probably 2 ribbons each. And then we'll just come back in with one more paw print just to finish it off. So at this point we can take a black pipe cleaner, feed it through our fingers, make sure all of our loops are contained within. Pinch and twist from behind. And this is the effect we get. So at this point, we'll just attach it to our wreath, and we'll begin dovetailing and fluffing it once we attach it to the wreath. So since our sign is going downwards in the right-hand corner, we're going to be placing our bow in the left-hand corner, just to kind of help with the balance of things. So here we have our bow, and now what we can do is begin fluffing it. So while we're still on the table, what we can do is go ahead and dovetail, and to do that we're going to fold our ribbon in half and cut from the center out towards the wired edge, and that just creates a nice finished look. So some of these pieces we may decide to curl a little later on. Some of them are a little long, and it adds interest when you do curl some pieces, but I just think it's easier to go throughout and dovetail all of them, and if we decide to curl some of them a little bit later on, it won't affect anything. So just go throughout and dovetail all of them. And from a designer standpoint, creating this bow is very simple, very easy. If anything, it's probably one of the easiest bows to make. But as a consumer, you can't help but wonder how people create such beautiful bows using multiple ribbons and how they're arranged. So it's kind of an illusion for your customers. So try to incorporate some funky bows into your designs this year. It'll definitely be very popular. Okay, so we dovetailed all of them, I believe. We may have missed one, but that'll show up as we fluff. So now what we can do is we can go throughout our entire bow and begin pulling apart the tails, pulling some one way, pulling some the other way. I really don't have any method of fluffing my bows like this, just because they're so unique and we have so many different ribbons. But just make sure your paw print ribbon is showing, since that is the whole point of this wreath. And you do really want to showcase that ribbon since it's so nice. So we did miss one. Pull apart the loops. The biggest thing, I think, to create a beautiful bow, you gotta master the art of fluffing. I know that sounds kind of silly, but if you do really want a beautiful bow, you do want to make sure that it's fluffed nicely. Okay, so at this point, we're mostly done, but I do want to add a couple more tails to cascade a little bit. So we're just going to take a couple random ribbons that are 1.5 inches wide, make sure that it's not the 2.5 inch version, and just cut them about 18 inches. We'll do one of each. So here's when I'll use the 1.5 inch Harlequin. So now what we'll do is we'll just fold it, knot in half, create some pieces that are a little bit longer, some that are a little bit shorter, and just pinch them together in your hands, just like that. So again, just go a couple inches down, doesn't have to be exact. This one's only about 3.5 inches, where some of them are 6 to 8, but you just do want to have a nice overhang, so about 18-inch overhang. And we'll just cinch them all together. Just like that. And now what we'll do is we'll come back in with a piece of 22 gauge wire. And we'll wrap the wire around our ribbon. Just like that, so we have all of our tails tied on like that. And now what we'll do is we'll come underneath our bow and attach all of them. As close to the base of the bow as possible. and twist it 4 or 5 times from behind. And then at this point, again, we can dovetail. We are going to curl these longer pieces that are cascading. And then also dovetail the shorter pieces. And this will add some drama. It'll add some depth to your wreath by having such a long streamer like that. And also, since we're dealing with a smaller wreath, by using the longer strips, it kind of simulates and creates that illusion that the wreath is a lot larger than it actually is. So now what we can do is we can pull down our tails, just like that. And here's our finished wreath, you guys. So I will have this on the wall, and I'll show you guys how it looks on the wall. And then we can curl some of the pieces down below that are cascading. So let me bring this to my wall, and I'll give you guys the final effect. So here we have the wreath, and as you can see, once you actually place it on the wall, you will need to fluff it again. No matter what you do, no matter how much you fluff, once it goes in its final location, you'll find out that you'll need to fluff it a little bit more. And we added those tails a little bit later on. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to curl them. So some of them aren't straight, some of them are kind of crooked. We don't want that. It doesn't make it look professional, and it truly makes a huge difference once you begin fluffing. If you want to have some pieces cascading a little bit further than others, you certainly can. But for those extra pieces, I do prefer curling them and having the bow up here look all the same with some pieces that are a little bit fancier down below. So to do that, all we're going to do is we're going to take them, run our fingers through them, and begin curling them. Since this is wired ribbon, it easily holds its shape. And what we're also going to try to focus on is making the curls appear like this, where you can see the curl, rather than curling them behind like that. That way you can see the full effect, and when you go to take pictures, it creates that dramatic effect with the curls in the bottom and then the dovetailing up top. So if possible, if you can curl them and have the curls show, that's definitely good. See, right here is a perfect example. Often you'll see designers just leave the ribbon like that. It's okay. It's not my favorite. I prefer to have the ribbon perfect by running my fingers through it. Just like that. And of course, if you want to fluff it anymore, you certainly can do so. But up top is looking pretty good in my opinion. So this is the final effect, you guys. Very simple, very cute, and you can charge significantly more than it costs, which is always a plus. So for this design, I'd be charging minimum $45. More than likely, I'll be doing $50 or $55. Just because it's very popular and people go crazy for dog-themed stuff. You could also be doing a cat-themed wreath or any other animal, but typically people are dog or cat people. All right, everybody, I hope you learned something new, and you go ahead and try this because it's very simple, and you can pocket that extra cash because, this only cost about $10, and I'm going to be charging 5 times that. So this is definitely a design where you can make money. All right, bye, everybody. See you in the next video.